we elected officials talk a lot about children and babies, and we do it for a bunch of reasons. One, there's sort of a cliche of the children are our future. It's just something that we say. But there's much more to it than that, of course. Looking after the youngest and the most vulnerable is actually essential to who we are as Americans. We can't look ourselves in the eye every morning and say that the American dream is true if we don't also say that every child born in this country is going to have a crack at it. That they'll have a chance for the kind of prosperity that is the American dream. And this country has gone further than any country in the history of the human race in offering that dream to all of its children, but we're not there yet. Not by a long shot. Rosa represents New Haven with its challenges. I represent Bridgeport with its challenges. We are far, far, far from where we need to be to really be able to say to ourselves that the American dream gets offered to every American child. There's a more hard-nosed reason for our focus on babies and children, and that is that it is just unimpeachable economics. I think all of you know this, and I don't care whether you're talking about education or nutrition or health or dignity or employment skills. If you catch children early, and if you do the right thing, and by early I mean prenatal, if you do the right thing, the return on that investment is unbelievable. Bill Bavacqua of ABCD is here. We've worked very closely on a program called Total Learning, which is an early learning program that uses music and arts and other things to really prepare children to learn. It is so much cheaper to do that than it is to deal with a high school student on the verge of dropping out. You know the stories. You know that in regions of this country, municipal and state planners plan prisons by looking at second and third grade reading and math scores. Think about that for a second. They plan prison capital expenditures by looking at early learning test scores. That tells us that if we make the investment at the right moment in time, not only do we abide by the values that are incorporated into the idea of the American dream, not only do we do what we know to be morally and ethically right, but there is a huge economic return on that sort of investment. This is an important part of this, and in all honesty, I had not a year ago, I wouldn't necessarily have put diapers up there with housing and food as a necessity. Joanne came to my office and said, I've got one thing to ask of you, which is when you're talking about the necessities for children, include diapers. Include those things that don't necessarily come front of mind the way food and maybe healthcare do, but those things that actually allow it to happen, that allow for dignity and health, because it's more than just food and housing, and the point is very, very well taken. Rosa mentioned a lot of the programs that we are working on. I think there is now a realization in Washington that whether you buy this from the ethical and the value side or whether you buy it from the economic side, it is something that must happen in the realm of healthcare, in the realm of education, in the realm of housing. Again, it doesn't need to be Democrat or Republican. It's just good business to fix problems before they become large, to invest in people so that there is a return over the course of a lifetime. The other point I'd like to make is, I'll start by saying thank you again to all of you in this room. It is no secret to anyone that despite the fact that the window is open, the window won't be open that long. Why? Because governments at every level, municipal, state, and federal, are very simply out of money. You will already begin to see very soon, as the economy begins to turn, a renewed focus in Washington on fiscal responsibility, on making the cuts and finding the revenue and adjusting the programs so that we are on a sustainable fiscal path. It is what we must do, but it will involve very, very painful decisions. And we need to be smart about this so that we are not cutting those things which are such unimpeachably good investments. But the way it works, I ran a nonprofit for about 7 years. The way it works is if we are more innovative and more thoughtful and more creative about making this a joint venture between government, between the private sector, the GEs of the world, the Providians of the world, the law firms, and the nonprofits. We've never explored that to the extent that we should, and here we all are in a room. And I know this because, again, I was in the nonprofit world and in the for-profit world for some period of time. We must be more efficient. We must look, broadly speaking, at the NGO, the nonprofit community, and say, how do we configure this so that it fits well with private sector efforts, so that it fits well with government efforts, and so that we are operating as efficiently as possible. It's us in this room, federal, state, municipal officials, representatives of corporations, representatives of the United Way and other NGOs. If we come together to, as we must, to really work efficiently, to really work smart, the pressure that we will feel on budgets at every level of government will not be loud, will not necessarily result in a decrease in the effectiveness of the investment that we make. So those are my two thoughts to add to Rosa's. I'll close again with how delighted I am to be here, how important the work that you do now is. The hardest part of my job, honestly, is not struggling with the mechanics of healthcare reform, is not worrying about what we're going to do in Afghanistan. The hardest part of my job is when I am in the district, listening to story after story of people who are struggling, who are hurting, who are just trying to live basic, dignified, reasonable lives under circumstances that they never imagined they would face. So that you are here, the fact that you are here on this morning to do this work speaks volumes of who you are and frankly who we are. Thank you very much.